पवने में पवन समाया, ज्योति में ज्योत रल जाया, ज्योति में ज्योत रल जाया.
We have come together in this solemn gathering in memory of our brother and friend, in memory of the beloved husband of Panji Kiran Gill, and in memory of the cherished father of Natisha Gill and Nikhail Gill, the late Sardaar Manjeet Singh Gill, who left us on the 26th of May. We have come together in the presence of our spiritual guide, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, so that we can all draw solace, comfort and consolation from the messages within the scripture. And I stand before you today also in the presence of the Guru, so that I may share messages from within the scripture with all of you, with Manjeet's family, with all his siblings, and with all his loved ones. Nothing that I say will take away the profound and deep pain of your loss, Kiran, Natisha and Nikhail. Gurbani acknowledges the pain of losing a loved one. Gurbani recognizes the fact that feeling the pain, expressing the pain and sharing the pain is part of our humanity, part of our emotional makeup, part of what connects us to each other. So I do hope that the messages of Gurbani that I will share with all of you will provide solace and comfort, because these messages will convey the fact that remembering the passing of Manjeet is as important as celebrating his wonderful life. Gurbani tells us, Pyareo, that physical death is the return of the elements that make up our physical body to its origins. We have this set of verses on page 885 of our scripture, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Pavane mein Pavan Smaeya, meaning air returns to merge with air. Pavane mein Pavan Smaeya. The next verse is Mati Mati Hoi Ek, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, page 885. Mati Mati Hoi Ek, meaning dust returns to dust. Mati Mati Hoi Ek, air to air, water to water and dust to dust. The next verse is Brahma Gyani Mel Karo Bichara E To Chalat Paya. The word chalat means the order of things, the nature of things. E To Chalat Paya means this is the order and nature of life and death, which is that life is the coming together of elements from their origins, and death is the return of the elements back to their source. E to chalat paya. Meaning life is the coming together and death is the cyclic return of the elements to their origins. Then we have this verse within the same Shabad. Jyoti mein jyot ral jaya. Jyot refers to life, to our consciousness. Some people use the word soul, for Jyot. Gurbani says, Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. At death, life returns to its source, which is the giver of life. Consciousness returns to the primary source of all consciousness. The Atma returns to merge with the source, the Param Atma. Pavney mein Pavan Smaeya, Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya, Mati Mati hoi ek. And then Brahma Gyani bel karo bichara, e to chalat paya. There are no exceptions to this order. There are no exceptions to this nature and to this cycle. Every molecule of water, every molecule of air, every atom of physical matter, every molecule of dust within the human body goes back to its source. No exceptions, no processes, no conditions and no exclusions. Eto chalatapaya. Meaning, this is the cycle. And as for life itself, it too returns to its source, the Creator. Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. That is the only journey it undertakes. Back to its origins, back to the Supreme Being, back to its source. Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. The phrase ral jaya means it merges, it becomes one. There is no other journey. Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. Every life, every soul, every Atma, every Jyot, every light, call it what you wish, goes back to its source. Everyone merges. Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. No exceptions, no processes, no conditions, no exclusions, no judgments of any kind. Every Atma merges. Jyoti mein Jyot ral jaya. Why? Why does every Atma go back to Paramatma? Why does every life go back to the primary source of it? Because the source of every Jyot is the same one Param Jyot. The source of every Atma is Paramatma. Every Jyot, every Atma, every consciousness and every life goes back to its source. If the air, water and dust in everybody's existence comes from the same source and then goes back to the same source, Pyareo, then everybody's life too goes back to the same source. Because it came from the same source and goes back to the same source. That is what this whole Shabad on page 885 of the scripture Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is all about. It is about life going back to its source. It's about going back to our origins. It's about going back to the root of it all. Meaning, this is the cycle. Gurbani is liberating. Gurbani is emancipating. It is unshackling. It frees us from preconceived fears, real or otherwise. Guru Tegh Bahadur Padshaah, our ninth Guru, says on page 1427 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Panch tat ko tan rachyo, jano chatar sujan, jeh te upajyo nanaka leen tahe mehman. Meaning, the physical body is composed of the basic elements. Panch tat ko tan rachyo. Tat means elements, and tan means the physical body. Rachyo means constructed, composed, made. Panch tat ko tan rachyo. Panch, basic, root. And then Parsha says they return to their origins, jahate upajyo. And life, consciousness, and the soul returns to merge with its source, leen tahe mehman. Leen means to merge. Tahe means within its origins. Kabir puts it this way on page 1374 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Kabir writes, Kabira tur skel ke puriya bandi de devs char ko pekhana ant khe ki khe. The phrase puriya bandi de means the complete physical body was put together. Bandi. Puriya bandi de. And how was that done? Kabir tur skel ke, by putting together the elements. Then he says, Devasachar ko pekhana. Devasachar, 4 days. This is metaphoric, idiomatic, to refer to the shortness of life, how short life is, minuscule. Char devas ko pekhana. He says, once we have completed this very short life, ant, in the end, khe ki khe. In the end, it's dust to dust. In the end, it's back to the source. And I want to share another verse from the scripture of Gurbani, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that puts the notion of elements within our physical body into perspective. This verse is on page 695 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Listen to this very carefully. Jo brahmande soi pinde jo khoje so pave. Jo brahmande soi pinde. Brahmand is the universe. Pind is the physical body. Jo brahmande soi pinde means the elements that make up the physical body, pinde. Jo brahmande soi pinde, the elements that make up the human body are exactly the same elements that make up the universe. Jo brahmande soi pinde. And if you contemplate on this, says Bhagat Kabir, if you contemplate on this, you will realize the reality of it. Jo khoja, so pave. So, we come from within the universe and we go back to the universe. The universe that is all around us is where our basic elements come from. And the universe all around us is where the elements return, e to chalat paya. Meaning, this is the cycle. Pyareo, one of the most difficult questions we are faced with when our loved ones pass on is, where does he or she go? Where has my beloved gone? There are answers, and then there are real answers. Religion, especially institutionalized and organized religion, gives us two answers. The first is that we go to heaven or to hell, and the second is that we reincarnate. The answers that religion provides us are not the answers that our scriptures provide. This, unfortunately, is the reality of religion. The wagon or the chariot of religion runs on two wheels. The first is the wheel of fear. Fear of hell and fear of reincarnating into life forms. And the other is the wheel of promise. The promise of heaven and the promise of reincarnating back into human form. Now, there is a reason why the wagon of religion runs on these two wheels of promise and fear and not any other. The law of the promise keeps all of us within the hold, within the fold, and the fear prevents us from stepping out of the fold. Promise keeps us wanting to empty our pockets to keep the wagon of religion running, and fear prevents us from not wanting to contribute to his coffers. So promise and fear work together to keep us firmly in the fold of religion, but our scriptures are liberating. The messages within our scriptures are emancipating. The messages set us free So while organized religion, institutionalized religion spreads fear and promise, the scriptures are aimed at removing our fears and enlightening us of the falsity of untenable promises. And I'm not talking about just one religion, Pyareo. It is the story with all religions. All religions of the world run on the wheels of promise and fear. Gurbani is liberating. Gurbani is emancipating. Gurbani is unshackling. It frees us. It liberates us from fear, especially fears pertaining to death. Now, this is what Gurbani has to say about heaven and hell. So, we have this verse on page 969 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Kavan nark kya surg bichara santan dou radhe. Kavan nark kya surg bichara. The word nark is hell in Punjabi. And surg refers to heaven. Then there is this beautiful phrase, an apt phrase, what they call hitting the nail on the head phrase. Santan dou radhe. The word radhe comes from the word radha, which means to reject. So clearly this verse, what this verse is doing is to toss out the concepts of heaven and hell, to reject both. Meaning there is no concept of hell or heaven in Gurmat, in Sikhi or in Gurbani. Kavan Nark, page 969, Kavan Nark, Kya Surg Bichara. What is all this empty discussion, Bichara? Talk. Kavan Nark Kya Surg Bichara, because I have rejected both. I have tossed them out of my spiritual parameters and paradigms. Here is another verse on page 337 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Gaudi Kabir Surg Baas na banchiya, Darye na nark nivas. Meaning my spirituality is not dictated by the promise of heaven, Surg Baas na banchiya, expectation, banchiya. So I am not living for the promise of going to heaven. Surg Baas na banchiya. Neither is my spirituality dictated by the fear of hell. Darye na nark nivas. You can see that the spirituality that is within the scripture, within Gurbani, within Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Pyareo, does not run on the wheels that run the wagon of religion. Religion tells us that the fear of hell and the promise of heaven is necessary to make human beings do good deeds. And if we look all around us, that hasn't worked for the past thousands of years. It's a failed premise. The world isn't a better place because of the fear of hell or the promise of heaven. But this is what our scripture says about the argument. Gurbani tells us that if we undertake a good deed with an expectation, the expectations takes the good out of the deed. A good deed or any deed done with an expectation, what happens is that the expectation eliminates, removes the good out of the deed and converts it simply to a selfish deed, because it was done in expectation of self-gain. There can be nothing more selfish than doing deeds with the aim of ensuring myself a front row seat in heaven. Now this is the verse on page 325 of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Jab lag, so long as, jab lag mana, so long as within my mind, jab lag mana, Baikunt ki aas. The word Baikunt means heaven. Jab lag mana Baikunt ki aas means so long as there is an expectation in my mind, so long as my mind is filled, occupied with the expectation of heaven. Tab lag hoye nahi charan nivas. My mind then does not, cannot, will not have space for spirituality. Can never have place for the Creator to come reside within. You know why? Because the mind is full of expectations. Tab lag charan nahi nivas. So Gurbani tells us good must be done for the sake of doing good, with no expectations. We must do good because we can, because we must, because we want to. Yeah, and because we want to contribute towards humanity. Now, the other answer to the question where our loved ones go after their passing is answered by religion again through the word reincarnation. I'm sure you are aware that practically all, or rather all religions within the parameters of Eastern culture, Indian culture, Sanatan religion, also known as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, advocate and believe in reincarnation, but all of them have different meanings, different understandings, and different interpretations. A vast majority of Sikhs also accept the concept of reincarnation. And their understanding is that of Sikh religion provided to them by our clergy. That understanding is not the understanding of Gurbani or the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And Pyareo, I stand today in front of you not as a man of religion, but as a believer of the scripture, as a Sikh of Gurbani, as a student of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And here's a verse from page 1366 of our scripture, Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Simple Punjabi. You can understand this without any interpretation. Kabir, Manas Janma दुर्लभ है, होए ना बारंबार. Kabir, human life, Manas Janam is priceless. It is precious. Durlambh hai. Why is human life priceless? The answer is in the next part of the same verse. Hoye na bare bar. The word bare bar means bar bar. Punjabi. Bari to baad bari. Ek bari to duji bari, dobara, meaning second time, second chance, second opportunity. So human life is priceless precisely because it does not occur a second time. Gurbani, Kabir, Manas Janam Durlambh hai, hoye na bare bar. Human life is precious because it is only once. And you will agree with me that something that happens again and again, something that happens repeatedly, cannot be priceless. To make the point clear, Gurbani provides a definite example in the second verse. Jyo, just like. Jyo ban phal pakke poingare, just like a fruit that drops to the ground when it ripens. In other words, it has finished, completed its cycle of life, ripened. Just like a fruit that drops to the ground when it ripens, it does not ever go back to the branch again. Bahar na lage dar. Jyo, bana, tree, phala, fruit, pakke, ripens, poe, ground, gira, falls. Bahar again, na, no, never, lage, go back to the dar, to the branch. So the meaning of the couplet, Kabir, Manas Janam Durlambh hai, hoye na barambar, jo ban phal pakke poingre, bahar na lage dar, is Kabir, human life is priceless because it does not occur a second time. Just like a fruit that drops to the ground when it ripens, it does not ever go back to the branch again. So this verse describes clearly the Gurbani position on the notion of reincarnation. I hope you will remember that this is the Gurbani position, the position of the scripture. Having said that, I would want you to consider the following view as well. Now, since Hinduism is the oldest religion, now it's oldest because it came before Buddhism, it came before Jainism. So we can all accept the notion that Hinduism would provide us with the original understanding of the term reincarnation. But what I want to share with you, Pyareo, is not what the Hindu religion says, not what the institutionalized or organized Hinduism says, not what their clergy says, but what their scripture says. And the scripture I'm going to refer to is the Upanishad. The Upanishad is the first scripture in the world of religions to have talked about reincarnation and used the word. Every religion that came later took the concept of the Upanishad, modified it, added to it, and amplified it. So this is what the Upanishad says. And this is from the Bihadran Upanishad, chapter 1, section 5, verse 16. That a father reincarnates into his son. In other words, parents reincarnate into their children. A father passes his skills, his understanding of the world, his value system, and everything to his children. Parents pass their worldview, their virtues, their values, their beliefs, their experiences to their offspring. Parents reincarnate into their children. A father reincarnates into his children. This is the original, or what we can call the root or the seminal meaning of the reincarnation, and this is from the scripture Upanishad. And this happens in the here and the now, while the parents and while the father is alive. But such a meaning is of little use to the two wheels of religion, because this view breeds no fear and it makes no promise. More importantly, such a view can generate no income, for the institutions of religion. I cannot, for example, tell you that if you did X number of recitations of the Ramayana or the Gita, or, Y number of readings of the Dhamma, which is the scripture of the Buddhist, or Y number of, Z number of parts of the Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji, and paid me a certain amount, that I could stop or slow down the reincarnation of a father into a son. No one would want to pay a cent for such a deal. So the notion had to be amplified by the institutions of religion, rebranded if you like, repackaged. It became reincarnating into millions of life forms. Now, given a massive and frightening number of 8.4 million, a man of religion can now tell you, you can get 50% off, meaning 4.2 million, if you did X, Y, and Z ritual. Or, he could get you a heavenly pardon. With his connections directly with God, he could get you a pardon if you made the right payment. You get the point, Satsangatji. Which is why I said there is a massive difference between what is in the scripture and what is advocated by organized and institutionalized religions. The scripture liberates, while religion wants us to ride the wagon with the wheels of promise and fear. So this is what reincarnation is. A parent reincarnates into his offspring or her offspring. In the parent's lifetime, the father reincarnates into his son. Latisha beta, whenever you are overwhelmed by the desire to see your father, find him in Nikhail. Nikhail beta, if you look with the love that your father instituted and instilled within you, you will see him in Natisha. Your mother spent her entire adult life with your dad. There is a lot of your dad in her too. You just need the perspective of your dad's love and caring to be able to see your father in each other. Kiran Panji, whenever you are filled with anguish over things that you wanted to say and did not get to say them to Natisha and say them to Nikhail. The hugs and the embraces that you wanted to give but could not, give them to Natisha and give them to Nikhail. And the warmth and the affection of the embrace that you will feel will be that of Manjeet. Because that is where he is. And that is where he will live on, in your cherished memories of him. I was 23 years old when my father died. I agonized over things that were left unsaid, I hadn't said enough of thank yous to my dad. I hadn't said enough of I love you, Dad. But no one told me that I could still say them to my mother. And when my mother died 15 years later, I agonized over the same things again. I agonized over the things that were left unsaid to my mother. I agonized over the things that were left unsaid to my father that I should have said to my mother but didn't say to my mother. So I stand here today, Natisha and Nikhail and Kiran, to tell you that there is a remedy for the things that were left unsaid to your beloved Manjeet, and things that were left undone together. The remedy is within each of you, because that is where he will live on in all of you. So long as you want him to live on. I want to thank Manjeet's family for the opportunity to share these messages that I just shared with all of you. May the family, all his siblings, relatives, employees of Star Travel, all his friends and his beloved Rush and Bonnie have the strength and the courage to bear his loss, and the courage to keep him alive and keep his star shining brightly within our memories. सारी संगत दा मैं शुक्रगुजार हाँ। तुसां सारियां ने एक मन एक चित हो के मेरिया विचारां सरवण कीतियां हन। बोलदियां तो होइयां भुल्लां दी माफ़ी चाहुंदा हाँ। मैं इस गल दी भी माफ़ी चाहुंदा हाँ कि परिवार दे आशे मुताबक ये विचार मैं अंग्रेजी विच बोले हन। मैं धन्नवाद सहित स्टेज प्रबंधकां ते सत्कार ते मानयोग ग्रंथी साहिबानां दे हवाले कर रहा हाँ तां जो इस प्रोग्राम की निरंतरता जारी रखी जा सके। धन्नवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच। वाहिगुरू जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह।
पवने में पवन समाया, ज्योति में ज्योत रल जाया, ज्योति में ज्योत रल